Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Jung wrote these words. But I wonder if he knew they contained the secret to never being hurt again. The sun was setting as I walked along the river last evening. That strange golden hour when shadows stretch like truth across the landscape. When something about hurt, about caring, suddenly aligned in my mind. What if we've been looking at pain all wrong? What if caring too much about the wrong things is what keeps us trapped? What if the path to never being hurt again isn't building thicker walls, but choosing better battles? You know that feeling when a random stranger's comment ruins your day, or when you can't stop replaying that meeting where you said the wrong thing. We're exhausted, aren't we? Drained by caring about things that don't matter, wounded by people who shouldn't have the power to hurt us. I've been thinking about something Jung wrote in his Red Book, something that's been following me for days. The idea that we get hurt, not because we're fragile, but because we're investing our energy in the wrong places. Between one breath and the next, watching the river flow beneath the bridge, I understood something Jung had been trying to tell us. True freedom, true happiness, comes from the radical act of not investing your energy in what doesn't deserve it. When did we forget this? When did we start caring so deeply about things that don't matter? About opinions that will be forgotten by next week? About judgments from people we don't even respect? Maybe that's what Jung meant about integration, not processing every wound, but learning what's worth caring about and what isn't. I'm Alexander Gray, and this is Vertigo. Tonight we're going to explore how not giving a fuck might be exactly what your soul needs. The path to a life where nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. Not because you've become callous, but because you've become selective about what you allow to touch you. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This line from Jung has always troubled me, because isn't that what we're trying to do? Accept ourselves? But now I see what he meant. True acceptance isn't just embracing our virtues, it's also accepting our limitations, including the finite amount of emotional energy we have to invest in this life. Think about it. We're born with a limited reserve of energy, of care, of attention, yet we scatter it like it's infinite, worrying about strangers' opinions, about things we can't control, about judgments from people who won't remember us next week. What if the real revolution, the true path to happiness, is recognizing that we don't have to care about everything, that we get to choose? I remember when I first realized this. I was standing in line at a coffee shop. Someone bumped into me without apologizing, and I felt that familiar surge of anger, that need to say something, to correct this perceived injustice. But then a question arose. Why am I giving this moment the power to affect my day? Why am I investing my precious energy here? And in that simple moment, something shifted. Jung understood that most human suffering comes from caring about the wrong things, from giving away our power to external validation, from trying to control what can't be controlled, from seeking approval from sources that can never truly satisfy. But what's fascinating is how he framed the solution, not as apathy, not as disconnection, but as a form of psychological alchemy, transmuting our limited capacity for caring into something precious, something we invest wisely rather than scatter carelessly. Listen to how he describes it in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul. When one has several times seen how mysteriously, and yet how intimately fate deals with him, he may perhaps become convinced that something else than mere chance is at work. On the surface, he's talking about fate. But beneath that, he's pointing to something more radical. The idea that when we stop fighting what is, when we stop giving a fuck about what we can't control, we enter a different relationship with life itself. Just look at what drains us daily. The coworker's comment we replay endlessly. That person who didn't text back. The mistake from 3 years ago that still keeps us up at night. The stranger's opinion online. And we pour ourselves into these bottomless pits while the things that actually matter starve for attention. Most of us never question this. We inherit a worldview that says everything matters, that we should care deeply about all of it, about what people think, about maintaining appearances, about meeting expectations we never chose. But Jung was pointing to something else entirely, the radical act of selective caring, the transformative practice of investing our attention only where it truly matters. And maybe, just maybe, that's where true freedom begins. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. There's something about this idea that cuts deeper than it first appears. Jung wasn't just offering a clever observation about projection. He was handing us the key to never being hurt again. Consider what actually happens when someone's words wound you, when criticism cuts deep, when rejection feels like annihilation. What's really being activated? I used to think I was just sensitive, too easily hurt by others, until I started paying attention to the pattern. The things that wounded me most were always touching on fears I already carried, insecurities I already harbored, judgments I'd already made about myself. Remember the last time someone's casual comment ruined your day? It wasn't really about them, was it? It was about what their words activated in you. Jung called this the shadow. I encountered mine on a Tuesday morning in a therapy session I almost canceled. "You're furious," my therapist said, though I was sitting perfectly still. "Furious at what?" I asked. "At being unseen," she replied. And something cracked open in me. This rage I'd been carrying since childhood, this wound of invisibility. The comments that hurt me most were always the ones that touched this. The criticism that cut deepest always echoed that childhood fear, that I didn't matter enough to be seen correctly. But here's where it gets interesting. What if Jung wasn't telling us to process every wound? What if he was showing us how to become invulnerable to them? Not through numbness, not through walls, but through radical self-acceptance, through the ability to see clearly what actually deserves our care. I remember encountering this firsthand last year. Someone I respected criticized my work, called it derivative, unoriginal, and I felt that familiar collapse, that tightening in my chest. But something different happened this time. Instead of defending or deflating, I got curious. What about this hurt so much? Why did I give this person's opinion such power? And there it was. My own fear that maybe I was unoriginal. My own uncertainty about my voice. It wasn't about them at all. It was about what I already feared about myself. In that moment, I understood what Jung meant when he wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The hurt I felt wasn't fate. It wasn't something happening to me. It was something I was creating through what I chose to care about, through the judgments I'd internalized, through the power I gave to others' opinions. And in that realization was the beginning of freedom. The revolutionary understanding that I get to choose what hurts me by choosing where I place my care. Because that's what Jung was really pointing to. Not just understanding your shadow, but liberating yourself from its hidden control, from caring about things that don't deserve your precious energy. That's the secret to never being hurt again, not because you've become callous, but because you've become conscious of what truly deserves your care. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. There's something almost magical about this statement from Jung, the radical declaration that we are not defined by what hurts us, but by what we choose to care about. The river was completely still that evening as I walked, like dark glass reflecting the last light. And I found myself thinking about how much of my life I've spent caring about things that didn't care about me back. Pouring my energy into containers that would never fill, chasing validation that would never satisfy. We talk about not giving a fuck as if it's about becoming hard, becoming cold. But what if it's actually about becoming wise? About the sacred alchemy of transforming our finite care into something precious? Jung understood this. He saw how most of us scatter our energy like it's unlimited. But it's not, is it? We have a finite number of days, a finite amount of attention, a finite capacity for care. So the question becomes, what deserves your energy? What actually matters enough to give a fuck about? This isn't about becoming apathetic. It's about becoming selective. It's about the revolutionary act of choosing where to invest yourself. I realized something important while staring at that river. The things that have brought me true happiness were never the things I forced myself to care about. They were the things I couldn't help but care about. The people, ideas, and work that naturally drew my energy rather than depleted it. Jung described this process in memories, dreams, reflections. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. That's not about caring for everything. It's about finding what truly deserves your light. I've become selective about where my energy goes. The book I'm writing that deserves my care. Not because it might succeed, but because the act of creation itself matters. My father's memory, that deserves my care. The weekly calls with my sister, where neither of us mentions the grief directly, but both feel it easing slightly. The morning walk where the neighborhood cat always appears from behind the same fence. These small, sacred moments that would exist, whether anyone else values them or not. Think about it. What if happiness isn't about caring more? What if it's about caring better? About giving a damn only about what truly matters? The practice is deceptively simple, yet profoundly difficult. Notice what's consuming your attention. Ask, does this deserve my energy? If no, practice the radical act of letting go. I started applying this to everything. Comments, grudges, the person who clearly doesn't like me. One by one, I let them go. The mistake I made 3 years ago that still haunts me. May be worth revisiting, but not worth the constant self-flagellation. And something strange began to happen. As I became more selective with my attention, I became happier, more present, more alive. The energy I'd been scattering was now focused on what actually mattered. This is what Jung meant by individuation, not just becoming who you are, but discerning what truly deserves your care. What's actually worthy of your limited fucks in this brief, beautiful life. Because that's the true alchemy. Transforming indiscriminate caring into selective caring. Saving your energy for what matters. And finding, in that selection, a happiness that can't be touched by others' judgments or life's inevitable disappointments. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. The sun had completely set by the time I reached the end of the river path, darkness settling around me like a familiar friend, and I realized something about this path we've been discussing. The art of not giving a fuck isn't just a philosophy, it's a practice. A daily, moment-by-moment choice about where to invest our limited energy, and perhaps the most revolutionary act of our time. Because look around, we're drowning in noise, in opinions, in expectations. Our attention pulled in 1,000 directions, our energy scattered like light through a broken prism. But what if, just what if, happiness is found in the spaces where we choose not to care? In the liberation that comes from saying, this doesn't deserve my energy. I experienced this myself when I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning, when I stopped measuring my worth through metrics and likes, when I began to ask, does this really deserve space in my mind? And the answer, more often than not, was no. No, that comment doesn't deserve my energy. No, that worry about the future doesn't deserve my now. No, that judgment from someone who doesn't truly know me doesn't deserve space in my heart. With each no, with each fuck I chose not to give, I found more space opening within me, more energy for what truly mattered, more capacity for joy. Jung wrote about this state in The Undiscovered Self. The attainment of wholeness requires one to stake one's whole being. Nothing less will do. This isn't about avoiding pain or hiding from life. It's about the radical act of choosing what deserves our wholeness, what's worthy of our limited time and energy. And in that choice is a kind of freedom most never experience. A life where nothing and nobody can hurt you because you've become selective about what you allow to touch you. God, we're drowning, all of us. The notifications, the opinions, the constant demand to care about everything, all at once. What if the truly subversive act is to say no? To reserve your precious attention for what actually matters? Because that's what Jung was pointing to. A life where you're no longer controlled by what you care about, but where you consciously choose what deserves your care. I should confess something. I'm terrible at this practice. Just yesterday, I spent 2 hours obsessing over a negative comment someone left on my article. 2 hours of my life I'll never get back, spiraling about a stranger's opinion. The very thing I'm telling you not to do, so much for the enlightened philosopher, right? The truth is, this isn't a destination. It's a practice. One I fail at as often as I succeed. And in that choice, in that selection, is a happiness that can't be taken from you. A peace that doesn't depend on external validation. A strength that comes from knowing exactly what matters and what doesn't. So maybe, just maybe, the path to never being hurt again isn't about building walls or becoming numb. It's about the revolutionary practice of selective caring, of investing your limited energy only where it truly matters. Because in the end, it's not about not caring at all. It's about caring so deeply about the right things that the wrong things lose their power to hurt you. And perhaps that's what Jung meant all along when he wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." You are what you choose to care about. You become what you give your energy to. Choose wisely, live freely, and discover that happiness was waiting there all along. In the spaces where you finally stopped caring about what never deserved your precious energy in the first place. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. I've been carrying this quote from Jung for years, but only now do I see its connection to what we've been discussing. The light we kindle, the energy we radiate, it's finite, precious, and we get to choose where it shines. As I made my way home that evening, the stars emerging one by one above the city, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time, a certain lightness, a freedom that comes not from avoiding life, but from choosing it more selectively. When did we forget that we don't have to care about everything? When did we start believing that caring about everything makes us better people? The truth is simpler and more revolutionary than that. You have a limited amount of energy in this life. That's it. Gone when it's spent. Wasted on what doesn't matter. A finite number of fucks to give. And how you distribute them will determine not just your happiness, but the impact you have on this world. I think about all the energy I've wasted on people who didn't see me, on judgments that didn't matter, on expectations I never chose. And I wonder what might have been possible if I'd invested that energy differently. But that's the beauty of Jung's message. It's never too late to become selective. To redirect your care toward what truly deserves it. The practice is ongoing, a daily revolution, a moment-by-moment choice to ask, does this deserve my precious energy? And to honor the answer, because in the end, it's about becoming conscious, about recognizing the sacredness of your limited attention, and giving it only to what truly matters. So perhaps, the next time you feel yourself caring about something that drains rather than nourishes you, the next time you're hurt by a judgment that has nothing to do with who you really are, the next time you catch yourself pouring energy into a container that will never fill, remember Jung's quiet wisdom, the radical permission to be selective with your care, to save your fucks for what truly matters. And in that selection, in that conscious choosing, you might just discover a happiness that nothing and nobody can take away, a freedom that comes not from caring less, but from caring better. I'm Alexander Gray, and this has been Vertigo. Thank you for thinking with me tonight.